Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Paydirt, a Penn State football podcast. Along with former Penn State quarterback Matt McGloin, I'm Tom Hannifan. This show is brought to you by our sponsors, Funk Brewing, the official craft beer partner of Paydirt. Now, we're big fans of Funk Citrus IPA and Silent Disco IPA. However, we want to let you know about three Funk Brewing beers that you've got to check out. The Lil Citrus Session IPA and the Peach Bikes Shandy are available right now. Also, the Mango Sour Power is available as of today. It's a sour ale brewed with mango. Mango Sour Power is available now. You got to check it out. You can get all of these great beers at Funk's tap rooms now in Emmaus, Elizabethtown, and York. And of course, you can find Funk Brewing products at your favorite beer distributor and grocery store. For more information, visit funkbrewing.com, especially to learn where and how you can get their fantastic products. Must be 21 years or older to purchase. Please drink responsibly. Also, Paydirt is brought to you by our partners at BetOnline, who continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA and NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Paydirt is presented by BetOnline, where the game starts. So, Matt, we're almost officially into summer, but we're into the summer months. Not a ton of headlines or anything like that, but we can always look ahead to what the 2022 season is going to look like in regards to Penn State football and the Big Ten Conference overall. So with that, our guest today is a buddy of yours from the NFL Network, Mr. Rhett Lewis. What's your relationship with Rhett?
Yeah, so Rhett's a part of our SiriusXM ESPNU Big Ten crew. And had the pleasure of working with Rhett a bunch of times, on the radio on SiriusXM on Big Ten Radio. He does a fantastic job on the NFL Network. He does mock drafts. He's been around for a long time. Obviously, he's a former graduate of Indiana, so Rhett knows the ins and outs of Big Ten football as well. So it'd be fantastic to get him on the show today. Talk to him a little bit about and that's one of the reasons why we have him on, because the mock drafts we've seen from 2023 have some interesting players on it.
Mm-hmm. Some former Penn State player or players that we might want to talk about.
So Rhett does mock drafts himself. So I'll be interested to talk with him about that and see if he's done one for 2023 and what he thinks about some of the people that could potentially be big names to look out for this season and heading into next year's draft. But really excited to talk to him in a few minutes.
Yeah, Rhett is a former Indiana University wide receiver. He's about to become the radio analyst for Indiana Hoosiers football. So it's a big week for Rhett, so we're excited to have him on. It's also a big week for us here at Paydirt. This is a very important announcement. Starting Thursday, June 2nd, Paydirt will be syndicated on ESPN State College every Thursday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern during the offseason, and then that will adjust during Penn State football's regular season, and we get back to our Monday, Friday episodes of Paydirt. This is really, really exciting. We are so thrilled to be teaming up with ESPN State College, who you and I have appeared on multiple times and jumped on with Steve Jones, the voice of Penn State football. But personally, I'm so grateful to the Believe Network for arranging this partnership. Our editor and our liaison for all things, Joe DeLeon, has been awesome for us. But this is really cool, Matt, because we've been working on this for, to say only 8 months, I think doesn't do it justice in terms of what we put into this. But it's still crazy that in 8 months' time, we get to be broadcasting in front of ESPN State College. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about this, Tom, and as you mentioned, doing this for 8-9 months now, and how fast this Paydirt show has grown, it's because of the support and listeners we have, right? A fantastic fan base, people that download each and every week, people that watch on YouTube each and every week. I've been asked a number of times about it. When I'm out at an event or something like that. Hey, Matt, love the podcast. We enjoy listening to it. Things like that. So it's awesome to see that people have tuned in and people appreciate what we're saying. But we love it. We love talking football. We love talking Penn State football. And yeah, really excited and really look forward to what the future holds for the Paydirt podcast.
Now, just for the record, this is still going to continue in its podcast form for everybody watching and listening. You're still going to be able to get this first thing Wednesday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Again, head to Bleav.com, BLEAV.com, to the show page, and it'll tell you all the different platforms we're available on. But then on Thursday afternoons, as I mentioned, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. starting on Thursday, June 2nd, we are going to be available on ESPN State College. So we're really, really excited about this. And to your point, I'm excited to be in State College, Pennsylvania, in that market. But, also a big thank you to our fans internationally in Germany, Canada, Australia, the UK, Northern Ireland, China, Korea, Mexico, Japan, Israel, Ukraine, Turkey, the Netherlands, Costa Rica, Kenya, Turks and Caicos, which I had a fabulous time there once, Iraq, Taiwan, Russia, Sweden, France, Jamaica, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, there you go, Guam, the Hellenic Republic, Estonia, Romania, Mozambique, Thailand, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, Belgium, the Slovak Republic, the Dominican Republic, and Bermuda.
What, are you looking at your globe there?
No. That's all the statistics, thanks to courtesy of Bleav.
That's great. Yeah.
Where Penn State fans are listening. So we're very grateful to everybody listening, not only domestically here in the United States, internationally, and then we're going to be a part of the State College community. I'm really excited about it. So anyways, that's our big news. We're looking forward to starting with ESPN State College Thursdays, June 2nd. You can go to foreverstatecollege.com. That's foreverstatecollege.com to learn more about that. And I'll put the link in the description of this podcast. Without further ado, let's get to Rhett Lewis of the NFL Network. Joining us now here on Paydirt from the NFL Network, Mr. Rhett Lewis. Rhett, thank you for joining us. This is a big week for you in particular because earlier this week, if I'm correct, based off of your Twitter, you were named as the new radio analyst for Indiana Hoosiers football. My question to you is, did you command what Tom Brady's getting from Fox in terms of $375 million for 10 years?
Exponentially, in fact.
Like Tom, a million more, and
yes,
like, we're good.
Yeah, we had to top it. We knew Tom was coming. We knew that deal was coming down the pike. And so, like, I'm thankful, to IU for really stepping up to the plate in that regard. But excited to be with you guys, and excited for the season ahead, man. I'm lucky to get to work with Matt a bunch on Big Ten Radio and to talk, Big Ten ball with him. And so, to kind of get this next little piece of the portfolio, if you will, just kind of felt natural. And it's going to be difficult on the travel schedule, but excited for the challenges.
Yeah, that's always the case with play-by-play. So I sympathize.
Yes.
To be able to do that at your alma mater, do you sit there and think about, like, how do I be, down the middle? Or is it okay if you're not?
It's a great point, because I think, for better or worse, so many of those color analysts that end up, getting that homer title are beloved by the people that most often listen to them, but then are like, hated by everyone else. So I'm looking forward to that love-hate relationship. I'm going to try to keep it down the middle. We're going to be more on the constructive criticism side when that needs to happen. But I'm going to be excited when IU scores, wins, and beats Penn State.
Well, let's calm down.
Oh, whoa.
Let's relax. First of all, Penix was out of bounds. Let's just say that.
How do I turn this off?
I said it when that happened. It didn't matter if he was in bounds. It didn't matter if he was in bounds. It didn't matter if he was out of bounds. He was getting that call because they deserved to be there in that moment.
I agree.
They deserved to win that football game.
I agree.
Good for you, Matt. Good for you.
And Penn State definitely deserved to lose that. We believe
that's true.
Yep.
So, Rhett, we've talked about it on our own podcast, at least on the college football side heading into the summer. We're in the doldrums. There's not a ton happening right now. If anything, it's a lot of people projecting of what's going to happen. And one thing that Matt and I have just found absolutely fascinating, considering the NFL draft just wrapped up, is the projections for 2023. And one of them that really jumped out, not just to Penn State fans, but especially just for football fans altogether, is that former Penn State quarterback and now Kentucky Wildcats quarterback Will Levis is projected by some not only to be a top 10 pick, but I saw one CBS sports writer who picks him as the number 1 overall pick. What's your gut reaction to hearing these way too early 2023 draft predictions?
It's pure entertainment. It is pure entertainment value. For instance, last year, a 2022 way too early mock draft, which came out, I think, days after the 2021 NFL draft in Cleveland, had Spencer Rattler as the number 1 overall pick. He's now no longer in consideration to be a number 1 overall pick, but he's not even at the same school, and that was attributed to his name in that mock draft. That mock draft also had the Cincinnati Bengals as the 3rd worst team. Like, they were going to be picking 3rd, which obviously didn't happen. They ended up picking 2nd to last as the AFC champion. So that's the really difficult part, is like trying to figure out and predict what the order is going to be and the teams that are going to be up there. Obviously, there's a few who we expect to be worse than others. Fine. But then you start to attribute names. And look, here's the interesting part about this, guys, is like the quarterback chairs are starting to fill up, like in a way in which you would think, man, it's going to be tough to kind of forecast who's really going to be looking for a quarterback. Now, I know we only had one quarterback go in the first round this year, and Kenny Pickett, and that was probably about right. I thought that, Malik Willis and Desmond Ridder and Matt Corral and Sam Howell probably all went a little bit later than I thought they would. I thought we'd get some in the 2nd, some in the 3rd. I mean, by the way, the mock draft I was just referencing had Sam Howell as a 1st-round draft pick. He obviously went in the 5th round. So it's
that
pure
was
entertainment.
about right where he should have been.
Well, so
let's all calm down.
Yeah. So look, it's pure entertainment value. And I mean, look, talking about Will Levis, I, for one, and I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on this, was shocked at how well he ended up playing in this last year for Kentucky based on what we saw at Penn State. And I think that's maybe the biggest piece of the conversation when we're projecting quarterbacks, because fit and the 3 Ps, as I talk about on another podcast I do with my buddies Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks on Move the Sticks, is philosophy, play caller, and playmakers. Who's calling the plays? What's the scheme? And who's around you? And Matt, you could attest to this too. Like, that determines success so often for quarterbacks, right?
It's crazy because when you watch Levis play in 2021 and you watch Sean Clifford play in 2021, and I know Sean, we talked about a number of times on the podcast, Tom. Sean dealt with injuries for a majority in 2021. Will Levis better than Sean Clifford?
Yes.
And it's just like,
could you have said that though in the 2020 season?
No. Like he's more polished, and obviously both of you guys know I'm a tough critic when it comes, especially when it comes to quarterback play. But like sometimes, like he does jump off the screen at you a little bit. Now I'm not putting him in, the back room at the draft in Kansas City next year, right? And waiting to hear his name called on night 1. But like his footwork was quicker. He's confident out there. He plays fast. He can play from under center too, guys, which is a huge plus when making that transition to the NFL. And to your point, Rhett, Kentucky used their offense and their playbook to his strengths, which is what you're supposed to do, which I give Liam Cohen. Obviously, he's moved on to the Rams now.
Right.
I give him a ton of credit for what he did with Will Levis and how he was able to develop in a short time. Like, it was night and day from the Will Levis we saw at Penn State, who played against Iowa, who played against Nebraska in 2020. I certainly think number 1's a stretch right now, right? You have to be can't miss for me to take you there. I have to have zero concerns about you as a quarterback, but if he does it again, and improves and continues to play well, then who knows? But have you, and I saw this year, the one Tom was talking about, that CBS draft with CJ Stroud at 3, Bryce Young at 5. I saw Green Bay taking a quarterback. Just stop with that, please. Did you? I know you do mocks, Brett. Have you done a mock for 2023 yet? Or you're going to?
I don't. I usually honestly, I do one like official mock draft every year, like one and only one, because otherwise we're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. When you start doing 6 and 10 different mock drafts, and you're just changing things up just for the heck of changing things up. So I try to do one draft like that comes out the actual week of the draft, because I feel like we've had as much intel as we're going to get. We have as much of an idea of what these teams are going to look like. Although this year was kind of an outlier, it felt like we were getting a ridiculous bonkers trade for a marquee player like once a week, if not more than that. So I have not done one yet, but I would say at this point, my feeling is that CJ Stroud would be the first quarterback off the board based on physical stature, based on skill set, and based on the numbers that he is about to put up and the production that he is going to have this year in Ohio State's offense with arguably an even more talented wide receiver crew than the one we just saw produce 2 first-round picks. Yeah. So, and the other thing on when I look at Bryce Young is just when teams get a look at him and you see him in person and like you compare him next to CJ Stroud, I just don't know how you can make that call and not say it's going to be CJ Stroud just based on body type. And look, I know we've had smaller players succeed in the NFL. Kyler Murray is certainly one of them, a little bit more compact, I feel like, than Bryce, maybe a little bit more wiry. I don't know. Like, I think he's a heck of a quarterback. I just don't know how people are going to view that body type.
Yeah. Well, that seems like it's one of the reasons why Levis is getting
great point.
A lot of this hype right now.
Exactly right. And it's because of also, some of those skills that he kind of showed us on the ground, because now it's like, all right, look at Carson Strong, put up a ton of yards in his career, but could barely move and ends up going undrafted. And obviously some of that is injury related, but the fact that Will is a big, strong kid and can run and showed us that over 300 yards, almost 400 yards rushing last year. I bet you see even more of that this coming year for Kentucky. And then the thing that gives me pause about Levis is in a college system, which are, especially now, Matt, more so than when you and I played, like it's so quarterback friendly. Like, right. I mean, so you look at offenses like Ryan Day's, or you look at offenses like Lincoln Riley's at Kentucky. I mean, the windows of separation, or the windows that you're throwing in, the amount of separation, it's so much bigger. You got to see way more than a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Yeah. Right. Yeah. We got to be talking single digit interceptions for a first round quarterback, essentially. And then you want to see the touchdown numbers. You want to see the yardage numbers, I think would have to be a little bit more, even though I think Malik Willis is kind of an outlier in that. But if you're talking about first round quarterbacks, there's going to have to be some fine tuning there in terms of production.
So when you look at it, guys that were drafted this year compared to guys that are potentially going to be drafted next year, what's more important, what a guy can do right now or what he could be? Or does that just depend on what that team needs at that moment?
It's a good point. And I think, it's a good case study, this year too, compared to 2021, when we had 5 quarterbacks go in the first 15 picks. And, we had 6 of the first 8 quarterbacks drafted start a bunch of games. Really, I guess I should say 5 of 8, because Trey Lance really only started the one that I can remember, but he was a number 3 overall pick. So I think now, like, you can't, if you're drafting a quarterback in the first round, it's more than likely the plan is like, all right, we're going to let him sit. More than likely that's not what it's going to be, right? You're going to be thrust into the starting lineup. If not week 1, it's coming sooner than later. And unfortunately, it's because you're probably going to a bad team.
Before we go any further, we want to let you know that all of us involved in the Paydirt podcast are proud supporters of Thon, also known as the Penn State Dance Marathon. Thon is a year-long effort dedicated to raising funds and awareness for its sole beneficiary, 4 Diamonds at Penn State Health Children's Hospital. Thon is the largest student-run philanthropy in the world, committed to enhancing the lives of children and families impacted by childhood cancer. 4 Diamonds picks up where insurance leaves off to relieve financial stress and provide emotional support so that no family ever has to see a medical bill. Since 1973, Thon has raised well over $200 million in the fight against childhood cancer and counting. To learn more about Thon's year-long efforts or to donate, visit thon.org. That's thon.org. It's all for the kids. Make a difference in the life of a child today. And on another personal note, we want to take this opportunity to put a spotlight on mental health with an initiative called Tag Me In. Tag Me In is simply asking for people to tag in on the conversation and help strip away the stigma around mental health. Whether you're looking to lend support, you want to talk, you want to share, maybe you need some help. We invite you to join in on the conversation. We encourage you to make a video if you'd like, post it on your social media channels, and use hashtag #TagMeIn and hashtag #TagMeInUnited. At the very least, we want to hear from you. You are not alone. Tag me in. Visit tagmeinunited.com to learn more.
Yeah. Which is why this year was so different in that the quarterbacks, you had Kenny go with the first quarterback taking a 20 overall to the Steelers. It's a pretty good team. Like I think he's got a really good, it's a really good situation for him. Plus he's coming to a coordinator now that has some college background that in what he wants to do, and which he couldn't do the last year with Ben Roethlisberger, he can do now with Kenny Pickett, and talking about Matt Canada. So I think that's a really interesting piece of it too. So like, are you going to a team that has a retiring quarterback that has a pretty good squad? Are you getting drafted 20 to 32 to a pretty good team? Or are you going top 5 where, outside of, like some trade, that sent the team up to the top, that has a pretty good team, you're going to a bad team. And so the likelihood of you starting is pretty high. So I think that's kind of how I view the right now or later.
It's just like, when you look at it, like, I have to laugh because like there's so much, there's such a want for that position, for the quarterback position. And there just aren't a lot of guys that can do it. So like when you look at it, like there isn't, like
there's less than 10 in the league that are great.
Entirely the hype behind Will Levis, in my opinion, is that people look at him, they think, oh, Josh Allen, and he'll be just like Josh Allen. It's like, no, I mean, like that's not always going to be the case just because he has certain measurables. Matt, to your point, I think that's what people see.
And how much of it, like when you look at a guy like Levis, or I don't know, a Stroud, or somebody that has a ton of potential, could be this, could be a great player at the next level. How much of it is NFL teams and the organization believing that they can turn a quarterback into something special, rather than just saying, listen, there's nobody out there for us right now. Let's find a capable vet and let's bring in some top tier free agents here and build around this guy and build a great team that way, and know we're going to be in a competition week in and week out. We're going to have a chance to win games, rather than taking a risk on a guy that is just a good athlete who might turn into something one day.
Yeah, it's a good point. Certainly. So, by the way, since you piqued my interest when you guys were talking about this in terms of forecasting the 2023 season or the 2023 draft, I'm just looking at the teams that could consider taking a quarterback, and I'm like, there is a very limited amount of teams that are going to be looking in, like, let's say that top 10 to 15 pick range for a quarterback, like maybe Seattle. You're talking about maybe Carolina, if things just completely fall off the tracks, there again, and you're talking about regime change, at head coach. I mean, it's limited, because even teams that have quarterbacks that are at the end of their shelf life here, like the Bucks, like they took Kyle Trask, in the second round a year ago. Are they ready to turn the reins to him? Maybe if, you're talking about maybe if Miami completely falls on their face and they find out Tua Tagovailoa isn't the answer, maybe that's a spot. But it's like, it's limited. But as you know, and it was kind of interesting to see that this year, we all kind of thought like, all right, it's not the strongest of quarterback classes, but eventually they're all going to get pushed up, because that's just what happens. Although this year it didn't. It was like a course correction. You know what I mean? Seeing Kenny go 20th and then getting another one to the third round. So, I've seen, I don't know, you guys look at Vegas and the odds and all that, and I don't really get into it that much, but I did see someone put out there that the total on quarterbacks drafted in the first round for over under next year, as of right now, was 6.5.
Wow.
Which is insane. Like 5 is a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even think of 6 right now that could go in the first round, honestly. But
so it feels like somebody's going to force Rattler maybe in the first.
Yeah.
But like,
because of the great talent, and the great talent that we think is still there, that we're still not sure of. But that's the thing. Like, so much can happen. Like Kenny Pickett, is a middling middling in terms of production as a quarterback his entire career, and then busts out with 42-7 this last year. Same with Joe Burrow, with the Tigers back in 2019. So there's so much of that can be influenced by this last year. Now, I think we're kind of seeing that. Same with Mac Jones, last year. So I think that's kind of the curiosity part of this whole thing.
In your experience, Rhett, and obviously working for the NFL Network and covering the draft and doing all the mock drafts, do these teams, do they ever take in consideration what a player has gone through in his career when it comes to a playbook and learning new offenses?
Yeah.
Because you look at You look at a guy like Sean Clifford. This is his fourth offensive coordinator that Sean has had to play for. Joe Moorhead, Ricky Ronnie, Kirk Shiraka, and now Mike Yurcich. And like when you're dealing with that, he's dealt with that his whole career. Like his best year, you could argue, was his sophomore year. But at least, Tom, like he had some continuity there when he went from Joe Moorhead to Ricky Ronnie. System basically stayed the same. But do they look at that stuff like this guy? Like he's got some talent. There have been some inconsistencies in his play. He's been a captain. He's been a leader. He's played a lot of football.
I think that definitely plays a role. And I think, while it can be viewed as a negative in terms of production and in terms of, how that affected, overall team and individual success year over year, I think it could also be looked at as a positive in once we get to draft evaluation season, because you're talking about a guy that's been exposed to a lot of different concepts. And then now it's only a positive if you still absorb that stuff and if you can spit that stuff out. And number one, if you can process it quickly. And because Matt, I mean, like, as you know, there are two things that are really hard to improve once you get to the league. One is your ability to process stuff, both, from the whiteboard to the field and from the play call to the execution of the actual play. Like those two pieces of processing are what made Joe Burrow elite. That's what made Mac Jones a first-round quarterback. I think that's also, to an extent, what made Kenny Pickett appealing. And then, accuracy, right? I think Josh Allen is like the outlier in terms of improving accuracy once you get to the league. Like it's a dude that went like from year 2 to year 3, we're talking about like a 20% increase in completion percentage, which is virtually unheard of. And so like I'd throw that back at you, Matt, like how. And I understand that you can become more comfortable with concepts and you can be more comfortable in an offense once you get to the league, and you can probably speed your brain up a little bit that way. Yeah. But in terms of seeing the field and like having it kind of unlock to you in like a matrix sort of way, or in like a, like a Goodwill Hunting sort of way where you can draw the numbers on the mirror, you know what I mean? Like that's hard to improve. You know what I mean? You either have it or you don't, right?
Everybody always asks about the speed of the game. Like, how different was the speed of the game in the NFL compared to the speed of the game in college? I'm like, yeah, it's a lot quicker. Like your footwork needs to be quicker. You can't have any missteps. Like everything needs to be in check, right from your head to your toes. But you adjust to it, but you make it slower. And what I mean by that is if I'm looking at coverage and I got whatever cover 2, for example, I got my cover 2 beaters within the play. I'm here to here. Yeah, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Right. I have to, whatever. I may have 5 different routes. Yeah. But depending on coverage, I'm 1 to 2 to 3.
You know where you're going.
And that's it. Right. Yeah. You have a pretty good idea where the football should go before the snap. Always have a plan too. Yeah. Every time you break the huddle, all right, here's what I'm I think of it like in baseball terms, like I played baseball, basketball, football growing up. I probably should have played baseball because that's where all the guaranteed money is.
That's where the money's at, baby.
I'd probably still be playing. Right, but that's like when I'm a batter and I'm facing a pitcher, like Nolan Ryan's fastball is the express. Yeah. Right. I think that, like set for the express, adjust to the rest. I'm always setting fastball, but if something else comes for me, I'm ready for it and I have a plan. Yeah. That's what it is with football. Situational football, certain downs and distances. You've done your studying and preparation throughout the course of the week. Hey, they love cover 3. They love man here. I get down the red zone. I got to be ready for cover 0 because they may bring it. So I got this play, but you bring cover 0 in back of my mind, I'm checking here and I'm burning you because of it. And you do something like that early in the game, right? That completely changes the defensive coordinator's mentality. Like I can't call that
challenging this dude.
Yeah. These guys have a plan. Let's back off a little bit. Let's readjust and go. And then like you just get more comfortable, and you get you get in that zone, and that's the difference I think between some guys that are coached at an NFL level throughout college and some that aren't. And that's like, and why this is so I think intriguing to Penn State fans right now. What's going on here with the Will Levis thing and compared to Sean Clifford and. Like these guys are going to be tied together now because of this.
Of course.
Right. And it's like, why is he doing this at Penn State? Why couldn't he do this at Penn State? But he's doing it at Kentucky. And Penn State fans, you're wondering if they missed their chance in a great quarterback with Will Levis. The answer is you didn't, Rhett. They didn't. Right. They didn't.
Because he might not have been a great quarterback for you.
Exactly. He would still be the 2020 version of Will Levis because he wouldn't have gotten the coaching he's gotten at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Right? He wouldn't have gotten to work with Liam Cohen, who worked for Sean McVay for 3 years prior to being the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. He was able to develop this dude in a hurry. And believe me, I was a product of good coaching in my 5th year at Penn State. Right? Yeah. I know how fast it can happen, but I also know how much left there is to improve on. So, Rhett, when you look at that, you look at how often does this stuff happen? Like guys transferring, they get the NFL coaching, and all of a sudden they become a completely different player, and now they have a chance at an NFL career.
Yeah, I think it happens. I think it happens more often than not, honestly. And I think that's one of the, I think that's one of the positive things of the transfer portal is that, like, all right, I've been somewhere, let's just say it's 2 to 3 years, right? I don't even know what the average is now on players entering the portal. I'm sure it's all over the place. But you've been somewhere 2 to 3 years and you've had an opportunity to be immersed in the scheme, even if it's changed from year to year while you've been at that first institution. Like, all right, well, this is who I am under this coaching staff. Mm-hmm. Can I be someone different with another fit? Because, the offensive coordinator that recruited you to your school, I mean, like the chances that guy's there all 4 years of your career, that's like slim to none, right? Yeah. I mean, like
sad, man. It's sad.
It is sad, but it's just reality. And so like we have to understand the reality of the portal, and especially for quarterbacks when they enter the portal, like, all right, like I was a 2,500 yard passer and a 25 touchdown to 10 interception guy, like, and I just throw out the numbers just as a baseline. Obviously, this conversation isn't necessarily predicated on numbers, but like, can I go be, a 40 touchdown guy somewhere else under better coaching or a scheme that's more friendly to my skill set? Because, like I was sold a certain bill of goods here with this coaching staff. That's not exactly what's happening now. And I'm just not, my skill set is not necessarily suited for this scheme and this fit. Let me go find a fit somewhere else and see if I can become a better player. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. I mean, like we see it happen in the NFL all the time. Yeah. Like I look at, this isn't the best example, but like I'll look at, let's say, let's just take Mitch Trubisky, for example, like in Chicago, wasn't good. Was not a good fit. But like in the limited action we saw in Brian Daboll's system in Buffalo as a backup, like even in mop-up duty, that dude looked like a different player. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had better players around him. He had a scheme that was obviously more friendly to his skill set. We saw that with Josh Allen. We saw that when he increased his completion percentage and started being a more accurate passer. Or, there's also the idea that like, okay, he didn't necessarily become a more accurate quarterback just in terms of his individual skill set, but the offense put him in a position to become a more accurate quarterback with more defined reads, with better progressions, with better players, and with better play calling. So like, I think that's all something that we see at the NFL level too. We're seeing more of it now, I would say. And then I think that's a big piece of the transfer portal at the college level, and that'll in turn become a big piece of the transition from college to the NFL.
So you talk about the transfer portal, the big name that's jumping to mind. We're talking about Kenny Pickett a lot. His former wide receiver, Jordan Addison, puts it out there that he wants out. And all of a sudden you see some crazy things out there in regards to more so name, image, and likeness affecting the transfer portal. And now there's so many different things that are being put in front of government to try and limit name, image, and likeness, because it kind of has gotten out of control. I personally am okay with like Bijan Robinson getting a Lamborghini or something like that. Yeah. And then somebody from Texas allegedly offering Addison $5 million to come play for the Longhorns. I understand that people are upset about this, but it's like, I heard somebody say name, image, and likeness, like now it's legal. And it's like, yeah, this didn't end with Pony Excess back at SMU. Right. Like this has been going on. Let's not kid ourselves. Where do you land on what's going on with name, image, and likeness now?
I'm all for it. I was all for it when it was happening. Certainly would have been all for it as a player. But that was back when the transfer portal didn't really exist, right? And nobody really transferred. Like, and if you did, you were sitting out for a year for the most part. But so I would say that I am for it the way it was initially intended, to lure people away from a school and into another school. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
But look, the train's on the tracks, man. Either get on board or you're getting run over. And like, that's the message that I think is being sent here. And I know that there's been talk about, trying to legislate this thing in a different way. I mean, like if somehow the NCAA comes around to figuring out the right solution to here, color me like absolutely surprised. Right. I mean, because if essentially we're like, oh yeah, we should do NAL now, I guess. You guys good with that? Okay, you're not, doesn't matter. We're doing it. And so it was like, oh, all right, this is the 1201, this past summer and whatever month that was, everything was legal. The way, I mean, like, I think, it was clear that unintended consequences were going to be a big piece of this. And that's what we're seeing now. I hate it that it's luring kids away from a certain school. Now in Addison's defense, loses his quarterback, who's a first round pick in the NFL, and his offensive coordinator.
Business
so
decision. Business decision.
It is. And are you going to be in a better position to succeed at USC? Like, with Lincoln Riley or, at Texas with Sark and whoever, that they recruit in there? Like, yeah, it's possible.
Here's the thing too.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing too with that, Rhett. Like that, obviously that was a business decision. You're right. Mark Whipple takes the offensive coordinator job in Nebraska. Kenny Pickett goes in the first round. Clearly, he doesn't think they can repeat and do what they did a year ago, right? Goes to USC, wants to become that household name. What does this say to recruits about what Pitt has to offer you?
Yeah.
This isn't a good look for Pat Narduzzi's program, right? You win the ACC, you still can't do enough to promote a player, help him make money through the NIL and convince him to stay. And one of the things I think people are forgetting is that like the odds are against you when you enter the portal. Right. That's something that's not talked about enough because we see the Spencer Rattlers. we see the Jordan Addisons. We see these big time players going to other programs or bigger programs. I read an article.
It's like the 1%ers.
And the numbers were crazy. You don't realize it until you read about it or you see it in an article. I think it was only around, I'll read it right here. Only around 5 in 10 players are actually finding a new school to play for. 41% have not found a new school, are still looking, transferred to a non-NCAA school, or left their sport completely. And the article is from April 25th of this year, 2022. So, I mean, that's crazy to me when you see something like that in those numbers.
I just don't know. I know that we're trying to figure out, like time periods to enter the portal and better time periods to, so it's not like a year, an all year thing. I know we have some of that now, but trying to make it a little bit more stringent, will probably help facilitate that process. The weeding out of guys that, maybe shouldn't be in the portal. Hopefully that's what happens, but I don't see that. Like, who's going to come up with this solution on NIL that makes everybody happy?
I agree with you, Rick. Because if the NCAA should have had an answer to this before they let the cat out of the proverbial bag. Like they created this monster by not doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we're at now. So, like, I mean, are we gonna send it into the halls of Congress to figure out? I mean.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're going, unfortunately.
There have been greater issues go into those hallowed halls and come out, a complete disaster than this. So,
we've seen that very recently. So we are a Penn State podcast, and as we've talked about Will Levis and Sean Clifford a bit, I would love to get your projection. You're a Big Ten guy. You're going to be covering the Big Ten. What is your projection for the Big Ten football conference looking at 2022? And where do you see Penn State fitting into that?
Yeah, look, I think Penn State's always, and again, with another fantastic recruiting class by James Franklin, at least in terms of the way that the ranking systems have it now. Obviously, we'll see we'll see in a year or two on paper what that looks like and how many guys are still around, because that's kind of the way that you have to evaluate these things truly now. But I think just the level of talent is always going to place Penn State. The level of consistent talent is always going to place Penn State in a position of contention. I think that's going to be the case. I still look at them as a rung below Ohio State in this conversation, and perhaps still a notch below Michigan in what they have coming back, because it does feel like it's like 1A, one is Ohio State, 2A is Michigan, 2B is Penn State, and 2C is Michigan State. And so, like, how do we, and then, where do the teams that are still clawing for that consistency, like my Hoosiers, who have proven that just 2 years ago they can compete with the big boys in the East Division of the Big Ten. But to do it consistently is what makes you, a true, contender and one of the big four. So I think my Hoosiers will be back in contention this year with some solid, consistent quarterback play. Obviously, we talked about the fact that, they played 4 different quarterbacks last year. It was an absolute disaster. So as long as that piece of it is settled, I think they'll be back in contention. But I think Penn State's right up there. I just think Ohio State's still in a class by themselves, both in the East and West, with the talent that they have coming back and the way that they were able to beat Utah without, a number of their best players, leaving due to bowl prep or leaving due to prep for the NFL draft. It tells us like, all right, this team's going to compete for college football playoff college football playoff appearance and a national championship, and everybody else is going to have to prove it. They're going to have to prove that they're on that level and that they can chase down Ohio State. And I think everyone is essentially in the same bag there, even Michigan, who beat them last year. So, and then on the West, like, I don't know, right?
I guess Iowa and Wisconsin again,
Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Purdue.
Like,
I think it's Purdue. Right now, I think it's Purdue. Don't sleep on Minnesota either. Excuse me. Yeah. I think Minnesota could be very good. They just, like, for some of these schools throughout the Big Ten, you look at even Maryland. The talent, the potential.
Well, look at the quarterback, right? Talia and Aiden O'Connell, like, are arguably 2 of the best quarterbacks that are returning in this conference.
I think they have to realize that they can win.
Yeah.
Right. It's about changing that culture, changing that atmosphere, and knowing they can compete and win. If they're able to do that, there are some teams like in Indiana, right? Yeah. That can certainly make some noise this year. Yeah.
In regards to last question here, the ACC was batting around the idea of getting rid of divisions. What do you think about that? And should the Big Ten do that?
I do like that idea. I really do. I like the idea that we're going to get to see more teams on a more consistent basis, and we can kind of shake that bag up a little bit. Because the East essentially, it's
the same 2 teams every year.
It's the same teams, and it's like we have the Power 5, and then there's the Power 4 in the Big Ten East. You know what I mean? And so then, well, it's more like 3, and then we're getting some rotation in with that 4th team. It was Indiana 2020. It was Michigan State last year, or like who jumps in, who's next in, and who can stay in and stay in contention with those 2 teams. But yeah, I would love to see a little bit more parity in the East, and so maybe opening it up there kind of gives us that. And then I don't know what the proposal would be for non-conference and all that, but maintaining some semblance of quality opponents within the alliance, if it still exists here in the next couple of years, would be fun to see too.
There's all sorts of fun things where college football is going to get turned on its head. So,
yes,
Rhett, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Best of luck to everything you're doing on the NFL Network. Yes. And I sincerely hope the next time Indiana plays Penn State that it's painful for you and it's good for you.
Let's go. Come on.
Seriously, congratulations on that, to be able to work for your home school. That's amazing. Cool, man. Congratulations. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you guys next time here on Paydirt.